Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Today's story is titled, Abandoned on a Blind Date Until the Billionaire Beside Her Whispered, "You Deserve More." Now, let us return to our main character. It happened on a Friday night in Manhattan. The restaurant glowed under golden light, every glass shimmering like crystal, every plate designed like a piece of art. The low murmur of laughter and the clinking of silverware filled the air. Yet at table 8, Lila Hart sat alone, staring at the empty chair across from her. She checked her phone again. 7:46 p.m. A single text stared back at her. "Running late, sorry." That message had arrived 40 minutes ago. The waiter passed by with a polite smile that felt like pity. Lila's cheeks burned. She straightened her second-hand dress, smoothed her hair, and tried to look unfazed. Her heart kept whispering, maybe he got stuck in traffic, maybe he is still coming. But the truth was already there in the empty glass of water in front of her. At the next table, Ethan Ward lifted his eyes from the leather menu. Tall, poised, and calm in his tailored navy suit, he noticed the woman sitting alone. The light caught her face soft, nervous, hopeful, and then quietly breaking. He had seen this before, though usually from the other side of power. People pretending, people performing. But there was nothing fake about the way she twisted the napkin in her hand to hide her shaking. Lila's phone buzzed again. Her stomach tightened. This time the message read, "Sorry, something came up. Let's reschedule." Her breath caught. The world went silent except for the faint hum of conversation around her. For a moment, she thought she could disappear right there into the linen tablecloth. The waiter approached, hesitant. "Would you still like to keep the table, miss?" She forced a smile. "No, thank you." Her voice cracked. Before she could stand, a calm male voice spoke from beside her. "You deserve better than that." Lila turned. The man at the next table, dark hair, calm grey eyes, was looking right at her. He was not smiling out of pity, just quiet certainty, the kind of tone that stops the noise in your head. "I am sorry," she said softly, embarrassed. "I did not mean to make a scene." "You did not," he replied. He did. For a second, she could not move. The restaurant around her blurred, replaced by the sound of her own heartbeat. Ethan gestured to the empty seat across from him. "If you would like, you can sit here until your cab arrives. Nobody should have to finish a night like that alone." Lila hesitated, then nodded. "Just for a minute," she said. She sat down, her pulse racing. The waiter appeared again. Ethan ordered a coffee for himself and a hot chocolate for her, as if he somehow knew she needed warmth more than wine. She tried to smile. "I must look pathetic right now." "Not at all," Ethan said quietly. "It takes strength to show up when others do not." Ugh. The words hit her harder than she expected. No one had said something kind to her in a long time. She looked at him, his calm presence, his steady gaze, and for the first time that night, she felt seen. Outside, the rain began to fall against the window. The streetlights shimmered on the wet pavement. Inside, for just a fleeting moment, Lila forgot the empty chair, the cold message, and the weight of her own disappointment. When she finally stood to leave, Ethan nodded once, his eyes soft. "Take care of yourself, Lila." She froze. "Wait, how do you know my name?" He glanced at the reservation list the waiter had left on the stand. "You should not be easy to forget." Lila laughed under her breath, half flustered, half grateful. "Thank you for saying that." As she turned to go, the waiter handed her the folded receipt. "The gentleman already took care of your bill, miss." She looked back, but Ethan's table was empty. Only the cup of coffee remained, still warm, and a small note tucked under it. "Do not let tonight define you." Lila stepped into the rain, clutching the note in her hand, not knowing that the man who had rescued her from humiliation was Ethan Ward, one of the city's most powerful billionaires. The next morning, the city woke under a pale grey sky. A fine drizzle coated the streets, and taxis splashed through puddles as Lila hurried toward the subway. Her shoes were still damp from last night's rain, and her body felt heavier than it should have. She had barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that empty chair, then the calm, grey eyes of the man who had told her, "You deserve better." She replayed his words again and again. Maybe he had just been kind. Maybe he had felt sorry for her. But for some reason that single sentence had pierced through the fog she had been living in. Lila stepped off the train and joined the stream of commuters moving through the damp underground tunnels. She worked as an administrative assistant in a design supply company. It was not her dream job, but it paid the bills and helped her care for her mother in Queens. Her father had passed away 5 years earlier, leaving them with debt and the small apartment that now felt too big for just the two of them. Her desk was stacked with invoices and supplier emails when she arrived. "Morning, Lila," called her co-worker June from the next cubicle. "Rough night?" Lila forced a laugh. "You could say that." She opened her computer and stared at the blinking cursor on the screen. But her mind drifted elsewhere to the warm note she had tucked into her coat pocket. She unfolded it again when no one was looking. The handwriting was neat, simple. "Do not let tonight define you." She traced the letters with her thumb. It felt absurd that a stranger could reach her in a way her own friends could not. At lunch, she sat by the window with a small salad and a view of the busy street below. The world moved on, indifferent, while she sat frozen between embarrassment and curiosity. Who was that man? Why had he looked at her like he understood? That night, back at home, she found her mother watching television in the small living room. "How did your date go, sweetheart?" her mother asked with a hopeful smile. Lila hesitated, hanging her coat. "He did not show up," she said softly. "Oh, honey." Her mother's voice trailed off, but she reached for Lila's hand. "Maybe that means he was not the right one." "I guess not." Lila smiled faintly, then turned to the sink to wash the single cup left there. She hated disappointing her mother, hated admitting that her life felt like a loop of almost. Almost promoted, almost loved, almost enough. Later that week, she found herself sketching again for the first time in months. It was a habit she had abandoned when her father got sick. Art had always been her dream, but survival had pushed it aside. She drew on the back of an old envelope a pair of hands releasing a paper crane. Freedom, letting go. For a moment, she felt the same quiet strength she had heard in Ethan's voice. On Friday, her manager called her into the office. "Lila, the company is downsizing. I am sorry, but your position is being eliminated next month." The words hit her like cold water. "Eliminated?" He nodded, uncomfortable. "We will give you a small severance. It is not personal, just numbers." Lila nodded numbly, holding herself together until she reached the restroom. There, under the harsh fluorescent lights, she finally let the tears fall. Everything she had been holding together, her mother's medicine, the rent, her dignity, it all began to crack. When she stepped outside later, the sky had opened up again. Rain streaked across her face as she waited at the bus stop, the city's rhythm slowing to a distant hum. She pulled the note from her pocket once more, now slightly smudged but still legible. "Do not let tonight define you." She whispered it out loud, almost as a prayer. Maybe this moment, the job loss, the rain, the exhaustion, was another test. Maybe it was asking her who she wanted to be when no one else was watching. As the bus approached, headlights cutting through the drizzle, she took a deep breath and tucked the note safely back into her pocket. She did not know it yet, but the man who had written those words was about to reappear in her life, this time not as a stranger, but as the key to everything she had been afraid to hope for. A week passed before Lila finally gathered the courage to check her email again. Her inbox was filled with polite rejections from companies she had applied to. Every message looked the same. "Thank you for your interest, but we have decided to move forward with other candidates." She closed her laptop and rubbed her temples. The walls of her small apartment felt smaller every day. Her mother was asleep in the next room. The soft hum of the heater was the only sound in the apartment. On the kitchen counter sat the sketch she had made of the paper crane. She had left it there without thinking, but now it drew her eyes. The lines were rough, the pencil smudged, yet there was something alive in it, something that whispered, "Try again." The next morning, Lila saw a flyer pinned near the subway entrance. Ward Foundation, Community Art Fellowship, open call for local designers. The name caught her attention immediately. Ward. Her pulse skipped. Could it be a coincidence? There must be thousands of wards in New York. Still, something inside her stirred. She took a photo of the flyer, went home, and filled out the online application. The program was offering a 6-month fellowship for emerging artists working on community projects. Lila uploaded her sketches, added a short essay about art as empathy, and hit send before she could change her mind. 3 days later, she received an email that made her blink twice. Congratulations, you have been selected for an in-person interview with the Ward Foundation this Friday at 10 a.m. Her heart thumped so hard she had to sit down. She reread the message again and again. The foundation's logo, a stylized W in silver and blue, looked elegant, professional, intimidating. She borrowed her friend June's navy blazer, pressed it carefully, and printed her sketches to bring along. Friday arrived cold and bright. Lila took the subway downtown and stood before a glass tower near Central Park. The building gleamed like a mirror, its entrance lined with marble floors and green plants. She checked her reflection in the glass doors, adjusted her hair, and whispered to herself, "You deserve to be here." The receptionist greeted her warmly. "Please wait here, Miss Hart. Mr. Ward will see you shortly." The name made her breath hitch. Mr. Ward. She followed the woman through a quiet hallway filled with framed photographs, children painting murals, volunteers building playgrounds, elderly residents smiling in new community centers. The air smelled faintly of cedar and coffee. When the door opened, she froze. Behind the sleek wooden desk stood the man from the restaurant, Ethan Ward. The same calm grey eyes, the same quiet composure. "Lila Hart," he said with a small smile. "It is good to finally meet you again." Her mouth went dry. You are the founder?" He nodded. Among other things, for a moment she could not speak. The room seemed to tilt. He was not just a kind stranger. He was that Ethan Ward, owner of Ward Enterprises, philanthropist, one of the city's youngest billionaires. Ethan gestured for her to sit. "Your application was impressive. I remember you mentioning you worked in design that night." "I did," she said softly, still stunned. "But I lost my job." "That makes you perfect for this," Ethan said gently. "We are building a new initiative to bring local artists into underfunded schools. We are looking for people who understand resilience, not just talent." His words disarmed her. He spoke without the cold detachment she had always associated with powerful men. Instead, there was warmth, almost humility. He glanced at her sketches, flipping through the pages with genuine attention. "You have a good eye for human emotion. These drawings, they feel honest." Lila exhaled, her hands trembling slightly. "I just draw what I cannot say out loud." That," he said quietly, "is exactly what art should do." He set the folder down and looked at her again. "The fellowship is yours if you want it. It will not make you rich, but it will matter." Lila blinked in disbelief. I do not know what to say." "Say yes," he replied simply. For the first time in months, she smiled without forcing it. "Yes." Ethan stood, offering his hand. "Welcome to the Ward Foundation, Lila." And, as she shook it, a wave of warmth spread through her chest, gratitude, surprise, and something else she could not name. When she left the building, the winter sun had broken through the clouds. The city looked softer, as if the world itself had shifted a little closer to hope. Lila clutched her portfolio to her chest, unaware that this was only the beginning, that the man who had once rescued her from humiliation was about to change every chapter of her life. The following week, Lila began her first day at the Ward Foundation. The office was not like any workplace she had known before. It was bright and open, filled with natural light, plants, and the hum of quiet energy. People greeted her with friendly smiles as she walked in, holding her sketchbook close to her chest. A young assistant named Clara guided her through the orientation. "We have artists, teachers, and volunteers working together," Clara explained. "Mr. Ward believes creativity is a form of healing." Lila nodded, still trying to process the idea that she now worked for him. Ethan Ward, the same man who had paid for her dinner weeks ago and told her she deserved better, was somewhere in this building, running a foundation that was changing lives. Her first project was small, to design murals for a children's art center in Brooklyn. It sounded simple, but for Lila, it felt like a second chance. She spent hours sketching colors, shapes, and symbols that could make a cold concrete wall feel alive. On her third day, as she was pinning drafts to a board, a deep voice behind her said, "You have an instinct for movement. Your lines breathe." She turned quickly. Ethan stood a few feet away, dressed in a charcoal suit with his sleeves rolled up, looking nothing like the untouchable billionaire she had imagined. "Mr. Ward," she said, startled. "Please," he said with a half smile. "Ethan is fine. He studied the sketches for a moment, then pointed to one. "This one, what inspired it?" Lila hesitated. "It is a memory," she said. "My father used to fix things in our apartment. He always said, 'Everything broken can be made beautiful again if you care enough.' So I drew a city made of broken pieces turning into light." Ethan's eyes softened. "That is the kind of story people need to see." For the next few weeks, he stopped by her workspace, often sometimes to check progress, sometimes just to talk. Their conversations stretched beyond art, about family, kindness, and the strange way pain can make people more human. Lila learned that Ethan had grown up with very little. His wealth had come later, after years of building his company from scratch. One evening, the office was almost empty when Lila stayed late to finish a color palette. Ethan passed by with a coffee in hand. "You are still here?" She smiled. Deadlines are powerful motivators. He set the coffee beside her. "Then this is your fuel." She laughed softly. "You are going to spoil your employees." "I only spoil the ones who remind me why this place exists," he said. For a moment, silence filled the room, comfortable, almost intimate. The city lights reflected off the glass wall, painting their shadows in gold. Lila looked down quickly, afraid of reading too much into the warmth in his eyes. A week later, they visited the Brooklyn Art Center together. Children ran between easels, their laughter echoing through the hallway. Lila knelt beside a little girl struggling to mix colors. "Try a bit more yellow," she said gently. "See how it turns warmer." Ethan watched from a few steps away, his expression unreadable. When the girl smiled proudly at her painting, Lila looked up and caught his gaze. He nodded once, as if silently telling her, "This is why you are here." On the drive back, the sky was painted in soft orange light. Lila gazed out the window, feeling something she had not felt in years: peace. Ethan broke the silence. "You make people feel seen, Lila. That is a rare gift." She turned to him, surprised. "I could say the same about you." He chuckled quietly. Maybe we both needed a reminder. When they reached her stop, she hesitated before getting out. "Thank you, Ethan, for everything." "You earned this," he replied. "Do not forget that." As the car pulled away, Lila stood on the sidewalk for a long moment, the city glowing around her. Somewhere deep inside, she knew her life had shifted again. The kindness that began with a single sentence, "You deserve better," was slowly becoming something deeper, something she could no longer explain away as chance. Spring arrived slowly in the city, brushing color back into the gray streets. By then, Lila had been at the Ward Foundation for almost 2 months. Her mural project in Brooklyn was nearly complete, and her life felt, for the first time in years, full of meaning. Each day she woke early, took the subway with her sketchbook in hand, and felt a quiet anticipation she could not name. Ethan had become a steady presence in her days. He did not hover or command. Instead, he appeared at just the right moments, a word of encouragement, a shared coffee, a quiet conversation about life beyond the office. The distance between CEO and employee began to blur, replaced by something genuine, something she did not dare to define. One afternoon, Lila was working alone in the studio when she noticed Ethan standing near the window, watching the city skyline. His jacket was off, his sleeves rolled to his elbows. The sunlight fell across his face, softening his usually composed expression. "You are early," she said. He turned to her with a faint smile. "Could not sleep. Too many thoughts." About the foundation? "About everything," he admitted. "Sometimes it feels like no matter how much you build, there is always something missing." Lila set down her brush. "Maybe it is not something missing," she said gently. "Maybe it is someone." Ethan looked at her for a long moment. "Maybe you are right." The air between them thickened with quiet understanding. Neither spoke, but both knew the truth had shifted slightly closer. Later that week, the foundation hosted a small exhibit to celebrate the Brooklyn project. Lila's murals were displayed on large digital panels, and her name appeared on the invitation: lead artist, Lila Hart. She almost could not believe it until she saw it printed. During the reception, Ethan moved easily among the guests, shaking hands, answering questions about the foundation's next programs. Yet every time Lila looked up, she found his eyes on her, steady and reassuring. When the speeches ended, Ethan took the microphone briefly. "This project reminded us why art matters," he said. "It brings people together, reminds us that beauty can grow from struggle, and that sometimes The right person just needs a chance to be seen. His eyes flicked to Lila at the edge of the crowd. She felt her heart leap before she forced herself to look away. After the event, Ethan walked her to the elevator. The night outside was calm, the streets glowing under the city lights. "You did incredible work tonight," he said. "Thank you," she replied. "But it was your vision that made this possible." He shook his head. "It was yours. I just built the walls. You filled them with life." As the elevator doors opened, Lila hesitated. "Ethan, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why me? Out of all the artists you could have chosen, why give this chance to a stranger from a blind date gone wrong?" Ethan smiled, but his eyes carried a weight she could not read. "Because you reminded me of who I used to be, someone who believed in people more than profit." Lila felt her chest tighten. "That is a lot to live up to." He stepped closer, his voice low. "You already do." For a heartbeat, the air felt charged, as if the city had gone silent around them. Then the elevator doors began to close, forcing her to step back. "Good night, Lila," he said softly. "Good night," she whispered. The next morning, she found a sealed envelope on her desk. Inside was a small card, written in the same careful handwriting she remembered from that first night. "The mural is just the beginning. Keep building what matters." There was no signature, but she knew who it was from. She placed the card in her sketchbook beside the old note that had changed everything. That evening, Lila visited the finished mural site alone. The children's laughter had faded, replaced by the quiet hum of evening traffic. She stood before the wall, her creation now alive in color and light. At the center, she had painted two silhouettes, one offering an umbrella to the other under the rain. She smiled, realizing the irony. The man who had shielded her once was now the reason she had rediscovered her strength. As the sun dipped behind the buildings, Lila whispered to the mural, "Thank you for finding me that night." "I am?" She did not know that only a few blocks away, Ethan was standing by his car, watching from a distance, a quiet smile on his face. For him, this was not about redemption or charity anymore. It was something far simpler and far more dangerous. He was falling in love. The following days moved quietly, almost deceptively calm. The Foundation's projects continued, and Lila poured herself into her work. Yet underneath the routine, a subtle change lingered, something unspoken that neither she nor Ethan dared to name. One morning, the entire staff gathered in the main hall for an announcement. Ethan stood at the front beside a large display board, his expression as composed as ever. "We are hosting our annual charity gala next month," he said. "This year we are featuring an art auction to raise funds for new community programs. I want our team to be at the center of it. Lila, that includes you." Her heart skipped. "Me?" He nodded. "Your mural project has inspired the theme. I would like you to design the centerpiece for the gala." The room erupted in quiet excitement, but Lila could only stare at him. I do not know if I can do that." "You can," Ethan said firmly. "I trust you." After the meeting, she found him in his office. The afternoon light reflected off the glass walls, turning the room gold. "Ethan," she said softly, "I appreciate the opportunity, but I am not used to being in the spotlight." He looked up from his desk. "You earned this spotlight. Do not hide from it now." Something in his tone made her pause. It was not the voice of a boss giving instructions. It was the voice of someone who believed in her deeply. In the following weeks, Lila spent long hours sketching the centerpiece for the gala, a massive installation made of recycled glass panels shaped into wings of light. Ethan visited often, sometimes to offer feedback, sometimes just to watch her work in silence. Those moments stretched between them, filled with warmth and tension neither could ignore. One evening, the office was nearly empty. Lila was cleaning her brushes when Ethan appeared by the doorway. "Still here?" he asked. "I could ask you the same." He smiled slightly. "I wanted to see how the project was coming along." She gestured to the half-finished model. "It is getting there." Slowly, he stepped closer, the faint scent of cedar and rain following him. "It is beautiful," he said quietly. Lila looked up, meeting his eyes. "You always say that, because it is always true." Her breath caught. The distance between them seemed to shrink, and for a heartbeat, neither of them moved. The air was charged with everything unsaid, the gratitude, the curiosity, the fragile connection growing stronger with each shared silence. Then Ethan stepped back, his voice softer. "Lila, There is something you should know. The gala will be larger than usual this year. Media, investors, board members. It will not just be about art. What do you mean? He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. Sometimes, people expect the man behind the foundation to play a certain role. They will be watching closely. Watching for what? For weakness. For distraction, he said, his eyes lingering on hers for a second, longer than they should have. Lila swallowed hard. Do you think I am a distraction? Ethan gave a small, almost sad smile. I think you are the reason I still care about what I build. The words hung in the air, fragile and electric. Lila's heart pounded, but before she could reply, he turned toward the window. You should get some rest. Big day tomorrow. She nodded, her voice barely a whisper. Good night, Ethan. Good night, Lila. When she left, the echo of his words followed her all the way home. That night, she could not sleep. She lay awake staring at the ceiling, realizing that what began as gratitude had quietly become something far more dangerous for both of them. And though neither said it out loud, the gala approaching on the calendar was no longer just an event. It was a test, a moment where everything hidden between them would either find light or fall apart. The night of the gala arrived with a sense of quiet thunder. The ballroom shimmered under chandeliers, and every guest looked like a page from a luxury magazine. Cameras flashed, laughter mingled with the sound of string instruments, and the Ward Foundation's name glowed across the stage. Lila stood near the entrance, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted the silver clasp on her simple navy gown. Around her, guests whispered her name, admiring the glass installation that towered at the center of the room, the piece she had designed. It rose like wings made of light, reflecting hundreds of tiny colors across the floor. She spotted Ethan across the room, surrounded by executives and reporters. In his black tuxedo, he looked impossibly composed, every movement measured, every smile carefully timed. Their eyes met for a brief second, and the noise around her seemed to fade. He gave her the faintest nod, one only she would understand. You belong here. The speeches began, and Lila found herself standing just off stage as the host introduced Ethan. He stepped up to the microphone, his voice steady and warm. Tonight is not just about generosity, he said. It is about believing in the beauty we often overlook. Sometimes, a single act of kindness can change the course of another person's life. As he spoke, a man in a dark suit leaned toward one of the reporters and whispered something. Lila could not hear the words, but she saw the reporter's expression shift interest, then surprise. The man handed over a folded envelope. Within moments, quiet murmurs began to ripple through the crowd. When Ethan finished his speech, he stepped down to join the guests, but the tension in the air had changed. A journalist approached him with a microphone. Mr. Ward, would you like to comment on the recent report about your personal involvement with one of your employees? The question sliced through the room. Heads turned. Cameras clicked. Ethan froze, his calm composure cracking for the first time that night. His gaze shot to Lila, who stood in shock. I have no comment, he said firmly, but the murmurs only grew louder. Lila felt her chest tighten as she realized what had happened. Someone had leaked photos, those harmless coffee breaks, late-night work sessions, and the way he sometimes looked at her as if she were the only person in the room. To outsiders, it looked like scandal. She turned to leave, but Ethan caught up to her near the exit. Lila, wait. Do not, she said quietly. You do not need to explain. I should have known this would happen. None of this was your fault, he insisted. They are twisting what they do not understand. She shook her head, her voice trembling. Maybe they do understand. Maybe we crossed a line. Lila. No, she whispered. You have a world to protect, Ethan. I am not part of it. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The noise of the gala blurred into the distance. Then Lila turned and walked away, her heart breaking with every step. Ethan watched her disappear through the glass doors, his reflection fractured by the sculpture's light. Around him, the whispers of the crowd swelled like a storm, but he stood completely still. For the first time since he built his empire, Ethan Ward realized what true helplessness felt like. The next morning, the city's news feeds were flooded with headlines. Billionaire Ethan Ward linked to employee in foundation scandal. Every photo was taken from the gala, the stolen glances, the coffee in her hand, the reflection of his smile. To the world, they were evidence of something improper. To Lila, they were memories now weaponized. She spent the day hiding in her apartment, phone buzzing with calls she did not answer. The foundation's name trended online, and comments poured in, some cruel, some curious. Every word felt like a stone thrown against the fragile peace she had built. Late in the afternoon, a message appeared from an unknown number. "Lila, I know you do not want to talk, but please come to the foundation tomorrow. I need to show you something. Ethan." She hesitated for a long time before replying, "I cannot fix what this has done." A moment later came his answer. "You do not have to. Just come." The following day, she walked into the foundation building with her head lowered. The front desk staff offered sympathetic smiles, but she could feel the weight of whispers following her down the hallway. When she reached Ethan's office, the door was slightly open. He was standing by the window, his tie loosened, the usual calm in his face replaced by exhaustion. On the table beside him was a thick folder. "You should see this," he said quietly. Inside were printed emails and internal memos, proof that the leak had come from a board member trying to undermine Ethan's position. The man had planned to push Ethan out by framing the story as misconduct. "You are being set up," Lila whispered. He nodded. "Yes, and I will not let them destroy what we built because of it." "What are you going to do?" Ethan looked at her with steady eyes. "I'm going to tell the truth, about everything." "That will ruin you," she said. "Maybe," he admitted, "but it will also free me." He reached into the drawer and pulled out a small envelope. Inside was the old restaurant receipt, the one with his note. "Do not let tonight define you." "I kept it," he said, "because that night you reminded me who I was before all this, before power, before fear." Lila felt her throat tighten. "Why are you showing me this now?" "Because I want to return the kindness," he said softly. "You saved me without knowing it. Now let me save what matters to you." That evening, a press conference was held in the foundation lobby. Cameras crowded the room. Ethan stepped up to the microphone, his voice steady but raw. "There has been speculation about my relationship with one of our team members," he began. "Her name is Lila Hart. She is not my scandal. She is the reason this foundation still stands for compassion. If that costs me everything, then so be it." Gasps filled the room, followed by the flashes of dozens of cameras. Lila stood at the back, heart pounding. For once the billionaire did not hide behind his image. He chose truth instead of silence. And as she watched him walk away from the podium, she realized that the man who had once rescued her from humiliation was now risking his entire world to rescue her in return. For 2 days after the press conference, the city could talk about nothing else. Some headlines called Ethan Ward reckless, others called him brave. The board was furious at first, but when the truth about the internal leak surfaced, the scandal began to crumble. The guilty board member resigned under pressure, and the foundation's reputation slowly started to recover. Lila stayed away from the office, unsure of where she belonged anymore. She had watched Ethan on television as he stood alone beneath the bright lights, refusing to let lies define her name. That moment had shattered something inside her, the last wall she had built to protect herself. 3 evenings later, she received a letter delivered by hand. It was written on thick paper with the Ward Foundation's seal. "The new art exhibit opens tonight. I hope you will come. E." Her heart pounded as she arrived at the same hall where the gala had taken place. The lights were dimmer now, softer, more intimate. The glass sculpture still stood in the center, but something was different. Beneath the shining wings, a new plaque had been added. "To those who were told they were not enough, you are." Lila stepped closer, her breath catching. Around the room hung photographs from the community art programs, children painting, elderly artists smiling, entire walls filled with color. This was the real work they had fought for. Then she saw him. Ethan stood at the far end of the hall, no tuxedo this time, only a simple black suit and a quiet expression. When their eyes met, the noise of the room disappeared. "You came," he said. "You gave me a reason to," she replied softly. He smiled, but it carried a trace of uncertainty. "I was afraid you would never want to see me again." "I was angry," she admitted, "but then I realized what you did was not for you. It was for me, for us." Ethan took a slow breath. "I meant every word I said that night. You are not my mistake, Lila. You are the best decision I have made in years." The tears welled in her eyes. "You could have lost everything." He shook his head. "Everything but you would have meant nothing anyway." For a long moment, neither moved. Then Lila stepped closer and reached for his hand. The room's lights shimmered through the sculpture, scattering color across their faces. "Ethan," she whispered, "I do not care about titles or headlines. I care about the man who told me I deserved better and proved it." He smiled, the calm finally returning to his eyes. "Then let me ask you one more question." He knelt slightly, pulling from his pocket a small velvet box. Inside was a simple silver ring, delicate and bright. "Will you let me build a life that deserves you?" he asked. Lila laughed through her tears. "Yes," she said. Around them, the light refracted through the wings of glass, casting a halo of color over the couple. In that moment, the noise of the city faded into silence. The story that had begun with a humiliating blind date ended not with scandal, but with grace. The billionaire who had once rescued a stranger had found his own redemption in love, and Lila, at last, had found the truth behind the words that had changed her life forever. "You deserve more."